Hey, welcome! Today we're talking about demystifying the process of writing vocal top lines to instrumental tracks. So this is a great tool to use when you are collaborating with another artist, like a producer or a songwriter who's writing the instrumentals, or if your writing process thrives when you write the instrumentals first and then add the vocals on top of that. So if you're catching this live, let me know, write hashtag live. And if you're watching the replay, write hashtag replay. Would love to know who's here and if you have any questions. So a couple things about the process for vocal top lines and writing vocals is that think about songwriting as a symbiotic relationship between creating the melody and the lyrics at the same time. Usually I find that it's hard to just write the melody first and then just write the lyrics. Especially for me, I prefer writing the music first and then doing the vocals on top of it, because for me, I like having the mood of a song that's going to then influence the words, and I hear the sounds first and that puts me in a space or an idea. So maybe you're like me with that. So ways that you can approach writing a vocal top line. First, let's talk about active listening. Then we're going to talk about getting different structures set up for your studio time when you're going to write, and when to break that pattern and step back and do something different just to freshen up your ideas. And then we're going to talk about getting in the studio and putting some ideas down. Okay, so starting with active listening. If you're like me, sometimes, I'll speak for myself, I can get a little impatient. I want to have the results now. No, I know the best things come with time, for sure. But sometimes I feel, oh, I just worked so hard. I need to crank this out and get it done and move on to the next thing because I have such big ideas that I want to do. You know what I mean? So it's good to stop, even take a full session just to listen to other artists' vocals. Other artists that you love, primarily, start with those first. And go through an album, or at least a song, and practice singing them. And then when you're practicing singing their songs, you're going to feel, where does that melody lie in your body? How high or low do the pitches go in the range of the songs? And you're also going to start to notice certain patterns by singing the song again and again. You're going to start to feel where the notes are lying, in lower areas around scale degrees. Well, it really depends if it's like around the tonic or below the tonic, or around 2 or 3, versus when it jumps up to scale degrees 5, 6, and then all the way up to 8, and then maybe above that. So you're going to do active listening. And something that could be really helpful is to hook up a MIDI keyboard to a DAW. So Ableton, Logic, GarageBand, Pro Tools, many other ones, doesn't matter. If you are able to pick out the melody by ear and play it into the DAW on a piano, like a grand piano sound, you're going to be able to decipher the tones the most easily. And then by playing through it, if you record your MIDI notes, then you're going to visually see those patterns. Another thing, by playing through it at the same time, you should download a track, like an MP3 of the song, pull it into the DAW so that you're playing along to the recording. You can also play along with the song and enter the notes in HookPad with Hook Theory, hooktheory.com, or hookpad.hooktheory.com, which I still stand by as an incredible resource for seeing how your melodies are played out over different chord progressions. Again, I'm not affiliated with them. I just think that they're awesome. And then noticing these relationships and what your favorite artists are doing in their vocal lines and in their melodic and rhythmic motifs. So those tools are useful. Other things that are useful for writing are setting aside normal times when you are going to just do active listening. That is all you're going to do in that session. And for me, I like to have smaller sessions throughout the week, like an hour or 2 hours, and then one full day, maybe on the weekend or whenever, just ideally 8 hours. Sometimes I still get distracted, but you put your phone on airplane and in the other room, you're just working on music. And in those smaller chunk sessions, that's when you're going to work on studying. You're going to listen to music, but with intention. And you're only going to focus on first just the melodies. Don't even think about the lyrics. Don't even think about what's happening in the other instrumental parts of the arrangement. Just only think about the melody. It takes a lot of focus, but you do benefit from that. Then on your longer studio session days, that's when you can actually do the writing and record your scratch demos for your vocals. Now, I also think that it's a good idea to step outside of these patterns and the places that you consistently show up to do your studio sessions, and take a pattern interrupt every now and then, and maybe do this type of studying work in a different environment, one where you still have a space to listen without distraction, but if you're feeling the need to change things up, you can do that. So always think about how you can do things in the most pleasurable way as you're studying and making music. And I'll share a little story about that and how it's helpful. So right now, for me, at this stage right now, I have just completed 9 scratch tracks, instrumentals for a new EP, and I'm going to pick the best 4 or 5 and write vocal top lines over them. I started writing vocal top lines in my studio yesterday, sitting down, and I set a timer, and I'm going to get into this workflow and guide you through this later. Set a timer in intervals of 5 minutes on, 30 seconds off, to go and complete 10 different ideas. But in that process, I'm not even sure if I like the overall direction of them. Like, I need some new inspiration and to listen to some artists that I really admire and appreciate. So this morning I was scheduled to get in the studio again, and I could sit here in my home studio right now and kind of crank out that studying, or even worse, just try to dive right into vocal top lining without feeling connected to any particular ideas to draw upon. And I also had to run some errands. So I decided that I was going to, usually I think it's good to stay on schedule, but sometimes it's nice to have a pattern interrupt. I decided to do my active listening in the car on the road. So you can also do this when you are walking down the street in a commute, or you're driving in your car. Use that space as your active listening space. And sometimes it is more pleasurable, and your studio times will be when you're sitting there writing, and you can also step outside to do studying in different environments. And I find this to be helpful because you can also be inspired by changing scenery. If you're driving, you listen differently, and sometimes it's more fun. And for me, it triggers, happy memories, in cars with other music heads and just having a great time. So you can sing along in your car and start to feel the space. Then what you can do after that is then come back to your computer and keyboard and transcribe what these artists are doing. So you don't even need a computer. You could just do it on a keyboard. Or really, you could just do it with a pen and paper to look at the melodic direction with scale degree numbers. And I have a free guide on how to do that at setyourlifemusic.com/writing melodies. But you can then sit down, and once you have this inspiration and start to look and break down and demystify what your favorite artists are doing melodically, then you can use that inspiration to fuel your new ideas. So, you got your ideas, you've done your active listening, and now it's time to get into the studio to write your songs. So, let's say you're writing and you already have either some chord progressions or you have an instrumental that you're writing to. It's very common that singers and songwriters, maybe they'll write the vocal top line, like the melody and the lyrics, but they'll work with producers who will produce, an instrumental track. So the producer will pass over a track, instrumental, or you'll have your own, that it's not the final version of the track, but it's up to a standard enough where you can hear or create for yourself sections where it's very obvious where there's going to be there's space cut out, like it's missing something. Those are the obvious spaces where the vocals go in. So from there, when you're listening, listen first to the track from start to finish and just get into the feeling of the music and just get into the vibe, in the mood. And from there, it could be helpful to just maybe play it again and just kind of sing along throughout the entire song. There's no right or wrong, just kind of go up and down and see what type of energy and what type of notes come out of you. Are your notes that you're naturally gravitating towards lower or higher? What types of rhythms are you normally gravitating towards? Are they slower rhythms? Are they fast? Are they syncopated? Just get into it and get your voice going so that we're activating our voice in the sense that you're using your voice as an instrument and it's not just sitting there dormant in your body where you're paralyzed to write something. And then from there, you can loop certain parts if you're working with any sort of music in software, or if you have some just chord progressions, you can just play them on loop. Or I also suggest, if you're the one playing on a piano or on a guitar or any other non-recorded instrument, to record yourself playing the loop again and again and again and again for like a minute or even 2 minutes on your phone or something, a voice memo. So then you can just take your hands off and you can only focus on the vocals, and you can play that voice memo recording back of that chord progression and then just kind of sing on top of it. From there, you're going to think about the inspiration that you had in those reference tracks that you analyzed and try to use some of those ideas. You're not going to copy them exactly as they are, but if they go up, down, you could go down, up, and it could maintain a similar rhythm, but switch the notes. Or you could use the same notes, but switch the rhythm, or switch things entirely. But the idea is that you have some sort of reference to start from that you can then stretch and sculpt as you would like. So then you have these ideas in mind, and then just start singing along on just nonsense syllables. And if you are recording this, it can be really helpful if you're in a DAW. You can have it on loop and just keep the recording going, because sometimes you'll have ideas that you like, but you just keep going and you're like, oh yeah, I really like that idea. And then you can go back to it. So you can just first go through and just sing nonsense syllables. And then when you start to feel certain patterns musically start to feel good in you and you just gravitate towards them more, keep revisiting them, play around with them. And then when you start to isolate certain ideas that sound good, you can then go back and see what kind of words naturally fit into those nonsense syllables that you're putting on those pitches. And you can think about what words, usually you can just think like, just throw out any words without being attached to any of them. But if you start to think about it more, think about what word, with what word you're using, where is the emphasis placed? Is it on the upbeat or is it going down? Where are you stressing a beat and that would be on a downbeat? Or where are you releasing a sound and it's going down in the inflection? And that part of the word would match the melodic contour of the song. I'm going to take you into my Ableton session here from a session that I was writing for vocal top lines yesterday. And so this is a track, one that I have in progress in Ableton. And I have, overall, I have this one, let me just turn this off. Okay. So Vox vocals, I have all of these lead ideas. And this is a way that you can challenge yourself to get some ideas down there. Even if you don't end up using them, getting in the process this way is really helpful. So you can start, I grouped mine. You don't have to group yours. But with the vocals, let me just turn that off. I have one vocal recording track. And in this vocal recording track, I have a few effects on it so that it sounds good when you're recording it. There's a little bit of reverb. The voice is compressed a bit, so it's going to be a little bit punchier. When it sounds good when you're recording, it's more enjoyable for you to sing out, get into it, because you're listening back in your headphones and you sound good to yourself, or at least better than it would be if it were dry. It's not a necessity to have this, but it's helpful. So then I will record, I will set one in to record, and I will loop just a verse. Actually, before we even get here, I use this timer app. It's called Seconds Pro. I think I paid for it, but it was like under $5. Well, you can't really see it here, but it's called Seconds Pro. When you're in here, you can create these HIIT intervals. You know, if you're doing a HIIT workout and you have cardio and you're like so many minutes on and then you have a break and then you're on again. So you have here, so I have 5 minutes on, 30 seconds or a minute pause, and I have 10 of these ideas. So I set it up, and now I have this as a default selection that I can access every single time I open it up. I'll just open up the same HIIT timer for writing vocals and say, okay, I have 5 minutes to come up with vocal idea for a verse and a chorus. And I know for this song that I wanted to do vocal manipulated ideas for a post-chorus, so I'm not too concerned about writing an idea there. So I was just trying to get out some melodic lines. And okay, 5 minutes. So press go, clock's ticking, and you can loop where the verse is happening. And then roughly halfway through, you have an idea for a verse. So for me, it will start playing, and the first time or two that it goes through, I'll still kind of be sorting through different pitches and rhythms. But then eventually, by, as it gets into the 2-minute mark, I know I have to put something down. And the idea is to be detached from the outcome and write a lot of ideas. And from there, you can sort and pick the best ones. So after the 2-minute mark, you go back in and it's continuing to go. And then you just decide to take one of those ideas and run with it. And then you just riff on it. And you don't even have to add words here, but just nonsense syllables or blah, da, whatever. And you come up with just some melodic idea. Then the clock is still ticking for 5 minutes, and you move over and you do the chorus. And then when I have that, what I have here is, let's pretend, oops. This is Vox idea 0. So let's say there's nothing here. So up, time's up, 5 minutes is up, and I have this idea here. And then I'm gonna just take it and I drag it down into here for this first vocal idea. And there are different plugins on this as well, but it doesn't even matter right now. You don't even need them at all if you're just writing your lyrics. You just drag it in. And then I will, in Ableton, I press 0, which deactivates the track. I will also just, usually when it's on in recording, it's like this. And so I record it, and I press, I drag it in, press 0, turn it off, turn this off, and I, could duplicate that track. Well, actually, even ideally, I duplicate the 10 tracks beforehand and I label them. So I just go 1, 1, 1, 1, and then, you could Command R or right click, minus 0. Oh, I clicked something and it went away. But I think it didn't like the minus 0. So, so then you start with your next vocal, just minimize that. That one's done. All right, time to get into round 2. Timer goes, and then you go with the next one. And you go down the line. And our goal is just to write quantity and trying your best to write good ideas, but not writing for the perfect vocal line. Because the more that you do this, the better you will get in time. So that's it. If you guys have any questions, let me know. Let's see. Hey, Julie, Lydia, Heidi, Stephanie, Olga. Okay. So Julie says I also start with an instrumental. Yep. Heidi says that's me. I'm not sure what that's referring to at this point. Julie, maybe listening through and singing along with another singer's tracks. Heidi says I've memorized every melody from Joni Mitchell's album Blue. Yeah, just singing through it. And I'm sure now, Heidi, when you're approaching your new tracks, that inspiration is going to feed your ideas. And you might not write the same sort of lines that Joni Mitchell will write, but you'll be in that same ballpark. Stephanie has no instruments or computer. Julie says there are apps to the phone that you can play instruments. Thank you, Julie. Yes, yes. A good one is GarageBand. Their app is really robust. Love that you guys are supporting each other. Cool. Heidi says, yes, it's so important that the notes feel good. I just recently become aware of this. Instead of trying to make it sound good, what I found that if it feels good, it sounds good. Yeah, totally. Olga says, my goal for November is to become proficient with GarageBand. I think it may be similar to Ableton Live in terms of the layout. GarageBand is most similar to Logic. And Olga, if you are trying to become proficient at a DAW, I would encourage you to use Logic or Ableton. GarageBand is decent. Yes, you can get a result with it, but if you're going to be putting in the time and effort, you can even get a free trial of these programs. Or Logic is $200. Ableton, they also have different pricing statutes, but you're going to be able to communicate with other high-level serious musicians when you're using a DAW that other musicians use for like professional releases. At the end of the day, you're still bouncing out, audio files and MIDI, but I feel that GarageBand does have limitations. So if you're going to invest time, invest it wisely on a program that you would use in the long term in a collaborative setting. Julie says, so it's 5 minutes to come up with the verse and the chorus, or 5 minutes for the verse and then 5 minutes of chorus. Julie, it's 5 minutes total, 5 minutes for the verse and the chorus. The entire line, and if you're doing a pre-chorus, that's included. If there's a post-chorus hook, That could also be included. You don't have to. Um, this is just an idea, and you can of course use it, shift it as you want, but it's just a starting place. Julie says, I heard BandLab is supposed to be good too for computer and phone app, but I haven't heard it yet. Used it yet. Cool. I don't know too much about BandLab. Thanks for talking about it. Olga says, thanks so much for the advice. I was going to upgrade to Logic Pro 10. Just wanted to start with something free. Yeah, good. The best way to do it is just get started. And then you'll see some of the concepts carry over. But yeah, that's it. So hopping off for the night. If you have any other questions or comments or resources to share, please leave them in the thread here. And I appreciate you guys being here